Hello, everybody. This is your host, CobraPowers. This time I have Mike Dammann, and he runs the website rhesusnegative.net. So I'm privileged to interview him about his research into the Rh negative factor and the Rh negative bloodline. So let's welcome our guest. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for your invite.
Great. So where are you located nowadays?
At the moment, I have been living in Thailand since right before COVID started. And then when the world went crazy, I just realized that the world where I am at right now is not as crazy as the world where I used to be in.
That sounds awesome. How is the weather and the food in Thailand? Because I do love Asian food, but I don't know if I could handle the tropical weather.
No, you just need to go close to the beach. There are so many nice beach towns, so many, and every condo has a swimming pool. So when you are there, you don't feel it. Now, the moment you go inland, maybe 5 or 6 kilometers, you know what I mean? It's a whole different story. I mean, it's brutal there. But and then the rainy season is coming in a couple of months. So it's not going to be warm at all, but of course, the rain is not that pleasant either, So I prefer the hot weather, actually.
I feel you. Yeah. I live in Texas, and it's usually hot and humid, but we have to have the AC. So let me ask you, going forward, since you've done quite a bit of research into the Rh negative origin, what are some of the primary hypotheses about the origins of Rh negative blood type?
That's something that I have been confronted with since the very beginning. I started this about 15 years ago. Before me, there was I had the first ever Rh negative group on Facebook. Before me, there was a Yahoo group by Eleanor Whitty, and so I pretty much already heard. Crazy. Theories that make absolutely no sense. And then there was, of course, a Neanderthal theory, which I am now more and more leaning towards as an evolutionary stepping stone. But we need to also remember, it's very possible that Rh negative blood has come from different places in different eras. So we're talking also about a gene deletion, and that could have taken place in many parts of the world. So you look at the Neanderthals, they had partial D. That means it is an incomplete D gene deletion. When you are D negative, you test negative for the D antigen of the Rh blood group, the Rh blood group system, then you are Rh negative. So there are more than 50 antigens in the Rh blood group system. The one that's important is the D. If the D, the capital D, is absent, and then it's written as a small d, it means you test negative for the presence of the D antigen. Then you are Rh negative. The Neanderthals had a partial D gene deletion. So that was something that I found out about a couple of years ago when I realized, in one of the old papers from A.E. Morant, somebody already stated that it's likely that 50,000 years ago, somewhere in the region that is now Basque Country, Neanderthaloid-like beings were responsible for what became Rh negative blood later.
That is so fascinating. I actually do have some Basque ancestry. I was born in Spain, in Barcelona.
Wow.
It's very close to the Basque country area, to Euskal Herria, really. So that's so cool.
Catalonia is also very high in Rh negative blood. I don't know the exact percentage. I know for sure it's more than 20%. But also R1b, the Y-DNA haplogroup R1b is very frequent there.
So then moving on to my next point that I wanted to ask you, how does the distribution of Rh negative blood vary globally? And are there any historical migrations or environmental factors that might explain these patterns that you know of?
Yeah, I would say that, of course, the Yamnaya people supposedly in the steppe region, they were high in Rh negative blood, 40%. Possible, it's possible. The problem is I keep asking the scientists, Please show me exactly how you got those numbers. Are these estimates or these are estimates? I have no doubt that the estimate is not too far-fetched. And I would say there was definitely an evolutionary benefit to having Rh negative blood that now can work, of course, against us because we live in a very unhealthy world. I would say that at the time, I mean, look at the Berbers, for example. A lot of Rh negative tribes, they were living by a sea, by the ocean, be it the Black Sea for the Yamnaya, or be it the Mediterranean region and Atlantic region for the Berbers, the original Libyans, before the Arab colonization. They were very high in Rh negative blood. And I would say a warm climate is good for us. Being close to the water is good for us. Oxygen, the CO2 and O2 transport, the Rh protein seems to be responsible for enhancing that. So there is a chance that we are in need of a lower elevation in order to breathe. Yeah, the oxygen and CO2 transport, the Rh protein is missing in us. So it may be hindered a little bit. It may be necessary for us to live closer by an ocean, somewhere where oxygen supply is plenty. And that is something where, again, I'm looking at all these tribes, these tribes that are high in Rh negative blood, how close so many are located to the ocean, to ocean regions.
Yeah, so then one of the many, well, this is more like folklore, but it comes from the families maybe that have kept some of this family lore, is that we originated not from land-dwelling apes, but really from maybe aquatic beings. So I wonder if you've heard about this, and maybe that this is a reason why we need to be close to the water, really.
Aquatic apes, yeah, I heard about that. That monkeys that were able to swim, they survived and became humans. Nah, I don't. Honestly, I really believe in cross evolution. I believe that there's, this is one of those things where I cannot always fill in the gap. When I don't know something, I am not likely to take a step in faith into any direction. You know what I mean? I would say that as far as I look at it right now, there was a gene deletion. Nature has a way of getting rid of any type of gene or traits or anything that we don't need. And simply the people, our ancestors in these regions, didn't need the Rh protein. And they were just close in warm weather, close to the sea. And they had a good time there, and they were all right. You know what I mean? They didn't have to have any kind of additional help in transporting oxygen and CO2.
Let me ask you, because of course there's so many different theories about the origin of Rh negative and so much superstition about it. So I wanted to ask you, in your opinion, what are some of the psychological or social factors that might contribute to the persistence of this mystical and otherworldly beliefs about Rh negative blood in the scientific era,
Yeah, I mean, people practice escapism. That's a very big one, and it's always been the case. Escapism has always been at the forefront of many cultures, so to speak, and people want to believe what they want to believe. And so, you look at all the different mysteries and all the different stories, and I honestly, I have to I'm on the path I've been on for a long time, and I need to disregard it simply because there are so many different ones that also contradict each other. And so which one am I going to pick? Well, I'm not going to pick any of them. I'm going to see wherever evidence and my intuition leads me, and then I will decide what I look at. I think reality is a lot more exciting than mystery when we get to know it, but we don't know anything. We don't learn anything. On the one hand, we learn certain stories that people tell us and certain fables and fairy tales and legends. On the other hand, we or everything that you have to learn in school is just watered down to the basics of what people, the older generation considers valuable for us. But we are different. RH negative people have a different history than RH positive people. And so my article series is called The History of the World Through the Eyes of RH negative blood, because I am interested only in the tribes that were high in RH negative blood. I disregard anything else. Anything else is not of interest to me. And I look at the similarities. And I think that people practice a lot of escapism. They don't want to be from here. They don't want to feel like this is what it is. And I understand it to the degree when you look at society as a whole, the society that RH negative people have to live in, it is really, really bad when you're at the receiving angle, because the people on top of the ladder, they are all RH negative. I am not talking about George Bush Sr., who was O positive. No, I'm talking about the real people way above. The people who are behind everything that society is driven by these days. I am sure they are all RH negative, but intuitively we can see through that. So everything that you see on television, everything that is learned, so-called learned in the school system, has been designed for the majority of the population that does not have our intuition, that simply absorbs what they are told. They are not critical. Their minds do not register. There are no red flags coming up. So people want to feel like, man, maybe we come from aliens. Maybe we are mysterious from the Nephilims or the reptilians. Anything exciting, even if it's negative, at least it's less boring than I am a part of this crappy crowd, part of every single day. I think that's a big one, a big reason.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, because the latest theory that I've heard, and it's such a escapist thing, as you mentioned, is that we come from the Alpha Draconian aliens. And there are people who are claiming this and selling courses and like how to awaken your Alpha Draconian serpent genes and crazy things like this. Though I do believe that there's like we do have a special kind of intuition, like a foresight maybe. But what are some of the origins of the myths that connect RH negative blood with maybe extraterrestrial origins, such as the Anunnaki and the Nephilim or other ancient astronaut theories? And what might fuel these speculations? Of course, is escapism, but do you know any specific superstitions or lore that keep coming up?
Okay, there are many angles I can answer this with. And one is, of course, Carl Jung. He made a statement that was taken out of context one time, and it was reported in American newspapers that he believed the UFOs were real. He later retracted, and he talked about how the retraction wasn't put in the papers. And he talked about why people feel that need. I have posted some other articles from psychologists before about wanting to feel special, we know we are special. RH negative people, we know intuitively that we are unique. And I'm not saying that I don't need this ego boost, but we are. And I'm talking more about other RH negative people that I am around, But anyways, let me go back to the Sumerian tablets. Okay, Sumer was probably very high in RH negative blood. It was an RH negative hotspot. All of these societies that were responsible for a high amount of inventions and a lot of progress also happen to have been very, very high in RH negative blood. And, Sumer, Mesopotamia was more advanced than Europe in the Middle Ages. And they also had, of course, the Sumerian tablets, and there was always imagery of something extraterrestrial. Where does it come from? Well, if you find a Star Trek episode in 1,000 years, people will say, oh, they used to go into other galaxies. I mean, it was prehistoric science fiction, you know what I mean? In my opinion. And I think that also people looked in the sky and they saw meteors. They didn't really know what they were. So they thought, oh, okay, there are gods are flying up there. I have no idea, but I think that is something where it all started. Just the same reason that, the Greeks and the Romans thought that their planets were gods.
Yeah, so one of the things is like, for example, Anunnaki, maybe it's a mistranslation because some translate it as the sons of God, the sons of Anu, things like that. But there's an alternate Anunnaki, which means something more like along the lines of when heaven meets the earth. And people take it as like, oh, it's like a Nibiru, extraterrestrials, aliens, things like that. But to me, that refers to nighttime, because that's when Earth, we see the stars. So to me, that refers more to our nocturnal nature, because a lot of us are night owls.
Yeah, I mean, I think that people were just fascinated looking into the sky, and they just wondered, what is all this? What are we dealing with? What is up there? And I figured that, people started telling each other stories. I mean, people were starting to talk about, people were making up stuff. We know, RH negative people are pretty creative and came up with a bunch of stuff, and they made some drawings, and then, I think it was just fiction, science fiction that they came up with. I mean, I don't see any kind of reason to think that, I mean, we're talking also, people talk about Atlantis. I don't see any reason for there ever having been an Atlantis, because nothing, I look at the sonar searches of the bottoms of the ocean, and there's nothing there except Doggerland, which used to connect the British Isles and Europe. And I forgot how long ago it was that it sank. I think it was only 7,000 years ago, maybe. I forgot the exact number. I'm not going to even look it up, but anybody listening later can look it up. And they found a lot of Neanderthal remains and early modern human remains, I think maybe 2 down there. And so maybe Plato heard a story about that. And of course, then you have the Nephilim stuff from the Book of Enoch, and people will continue to look for the offspring of the Nephilims and say, oh, it must be RH negative people.
So because we know that there's been a landmass that has sunk over the last 10,000 years, 12,000 years or so, that leaves the door open to a lot of speculation. But we don't really have any concrete proof that we can claim, so that's the other thing. But since you mentioned that we have invented a lot of things and brought a lot of innovation, I wanted to ask you, can you explain maybe some of the biological differences between Rh negative and Rh positive blood types, and maybe what impact do these differences have on health?
Yeah. I co-wrote a study in 2015 with the University of Prague on the differences, the health differences. And there are many psychological and physical health differences, obviously. We are more sensitive. We are the canaries in the coal mines. We are reacting stronger towards whatever is bad for people sooner, which I consider a blessing. We are not tolerant to anything that's bad for us. It means that we have a high levels of allergies, etc., etc. Maybe we break out, maybe something, but when something isn't good for us, we are more likely to sense that very, very quickly compared to most people. This study of mine was done in the Czech Republic, which is considered one of the unhealthiest countries in the world, and it is. Or at least it was at the time, where everywhere people smoke and drink a lot, and the food is grease. I love Czech Republic. I don't want to, but it was voted in 1 year, actually, the unhealthiest country in the world. So I think actually our health is much, much better than the RH positive health, given the right environments. Us consuming the right food, stay away from carbohydrates, stay away from anything that you are told is good for you, seriously. Protein, vitamins, stay away from any man-made carb items like bread. It doesn't matter if it's gluten-free or not. I mean, screw that. You know what I mean? All this nonsense. Just don't eat bread. It's a man-made invention for slaves, for field workers, so they don't die and have enough energy to work. And then spaghetti and noodles and all of this crap, pasta. Don't do it. Don't do it. we are more likely to react very, very badly. Look at Jimmy Carter's family, for example. Jimmy Carter is, I think, now close to 100 years old, okay? All the rest of his family, from what I remember, died in their 50s. Jimmy is the only one who lived a very healthy lifestyle. The rest, they all drink, they smoke, they don't care. They died of cancers in their 50s. So you have a choice. We die either pretty young and get very sick and then we're gone, or we stay healthy until a very, very old age, like Clint Eastwood and people like that. You know what I mean? So we need to be more careful. Despite the study I have written, I am convinced we are healthier people in general as long as we respect the warning signs, listen to our bodies. And I'm learning that more and more. Eat fresh, eat natural, buy your own stuff as much as you can, and then listen to your cravings. If you crave something sweet, that's your body telling you you need vitamins. So if you kill that with candy or something, then your craving is gone. And that's why, you have kids that destroy their health with candy. But it's really, really true that we are sold poison. There's a Twitter account, Spiritual Gangster, and he gives the best updates. Now, some of it, a small percentage of what he posts, I have doubts in. But it's so much about the health. It's really in 10 plus years, the best source of information I have seen, aside from, whatever RH negative related stuff comes out.
Yeah, so because recently I was actually diagnosed with some autoimmune conditions that are very Rh negative, apparently. I cut off
Mary.
carbs completely. I cut off sugar completely. I'm pretty much carnivore. I do eat some vegetables because I can tolerate them. I know that there are some Rh negative people that it gives them really, really bad stomach problems if they eat like cruciferous vegetables.
Yes.
But I wanted to ask you, so because I have experienced that and I'm trying to take better care of my health, are there any particular diseases or health conditions that show a higher prevalence among individuals of Rh negative blood?
Yeah, many cancers. Many cancers do. And you know what's weird? Now that you're talking about this, there are also studies that contradict each other. And it depends on the area in the world where the studies are taken. So, for example, blood type B has a higher life expectancy in Japan, and blood type A has a higher life expectancy in Europe. So the same with Rh negative. Well, first of all, also, let me tell you this, skin cancer. Do you think the sun actually gives you skin cancer?
I don't
No.
think so, but the very fair
No.
ones can burn up badly, but I don't think that it's the
Yes.
sun.
You know what? And it all depends on how much melanin you can produce, because tanning and dark skin, the function is protection from UV rays. So if you are able to get dark, like me, Thailand is all right. Should I go to the Sahara Desert where it's 50 plus? Probably not. I see Russian people come here and they lie in the sun 4 hours a day, and after 2 weeks they're still pale. So I'm like, no, you guys shouldn't be in the sun. And then they say, oh, but we have sunscreen lotion, it protects. No, it doesn't. There are so many chemicals on there. If you don't want to eat it, don't put it on your skin either. I'm very sensitive towards shampoos and everything. Most of the time, I just use organic soap. So I think that chemicals everywhere there are so many toxic chemicals all over in our food, around us, and so on. Autoimmune disease, yes, it's very prevalent. Have you seen any change now since you changed your diet?
Yes, absolutely. Like I used to have really bad psoriasis, and the psoriasis has subsided. My joints are better, they feel better. I'm much more
Mm-hmm.
flexible. And it's only been like
Mm-hmm.
3 weeks, really, but I have noticed that, and I don't feel bloated after eating. I feel
Mm.
fine. I can eat a lot of meat, and maybe I get a little sleepy, but I don't get like disgusting bloated.
Right. You know, I right now I'm drinking mineral water. Actually, chicken I eat a lot. Uh, just chicken with salt, and I don't need anything else. I mean, I also eat like the other things, fish, but 3 weeks is okay. It's only been 3 weeks. Are you going to stick with it, or are you going to go back to when you go out with your friends? Let's go to Pizza Hut,
No, this is
what you
for
going to do?
life because otherwise
Okay.
this could turn bad. So this is like I realized, oh, okay, I need to make a change for life. I've been writing on youth and beauty, and now I just gotta like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm at like a time that okay, I need to make a healthy change for the rest of my life. But since we're talking about health and these things, I wanted to ask you, are there any genetic research that you know of that has any insights about the evolutionary advantages or disadvantages of having Rh negative blood?
Yeah, no, I'm not. I have been looking for that, and the only thing I can think of is simply that we are sensors. We are sensing. Our senses are enhanced with that. We are more fragile in some ways, but a lot stronger in other ways. We are able to. We are not the type of people that need to be in a crowd and be told what to do. Quite the opposite. And for some reason, I think that, our ancestors were somewhere by the sea. It was warm. They eat a lot of seafood, maybe. They built ships already. Who knows? The Neanderthals already did that. So they already were so much more advanced than we actually know. And they were highly intelligent. They were much more intelligent. The Neanderthals had a cranial capacity more than modern humans today. They didn't know what we know, but their capability was very, very high. And so a lot of people talk about I want to stick with the Neanderthals. I don't want to look at the other, that's where the evidence leads me right now, and only there, that they were the evolutionary stepping stone. And the advantages were just there. You lose genes that are not beneficial to you in order to sort of enhance the senses that you have. And I'm very much into telesthesia, into things that people, ignore, into synchronicities, everything going along with intuition. Recently they call it astral projection, and they have so many fancy words for it. But telesthesia means sensing from afar. The air is not nothing. The air is molecules. Energy gets transferred. So is it possible, you think, that from far away we can sense things? Of course it is. Is it possible to sense it so well that actually a picture of what's going on somewhere else can come into your minds? Maybe. I mean, why not? Why, when you play music or when you do certain things, you cannot explain how you move your fingers. You cannot explain how exactly you become a great tennis player. There are so many things. So our body, our mind is not needed for that. Our bodies adjust to the environment and read the environment around us. So I am, very much into anything that has to do with intuition and with, and of course, it's hard to. Here's the problem. So many Rh negative people are medicated. And when you're medicated, your intuition is not working as it's supposed to work. You know what I mean? It can still be there, but it's misdirected, or it is being numbed. And I know so many Rh negative people who were misdiagnosed with ADHD or stuff like that in their childhood because they asked too many questions. They were considered restless, and so on and so on. And so they medicated the crap out of these kids. most of them have since, abandoned their medications and said, oh my God, I don't, need this. I just need to eat better. I need to maybe swim an hour a day or 30 minutes, at least go in the water 30 minutes. That makes a difference. I need to, and now I'm all right. But there are, unfortunately, still quite a few, and I've asked it in my Facebook group before, that are medicated. It's a really weird dichotomy, man, where, but RH negative people all are born with high levels of intuition. Empathy is a byproduct of such, but not everybody has it anymore.
Nowadays, there's a lot of talk about the inner monologue, that a lot of people do not have it. And that is a little crazy to me. So to me, having the inner monologue, of course, is like a higher state of consciousness. And also, it is something that we need for empathy to understand others. Looking at it from a more mystical perspective, some call it the higher self or like the holy guardian angel. But for me, as you were talking, some of the more interesting experiences that I've had throughout my life is looking at somebody and having a flash of what that person is seeing.
Yeah,
and it's like
absolutely.
they're far away from me, 50 feet, 100 feet, and I look at them and I see what they're seeing for a moment. And that happens quite a lot, and I don't know how to explain it. But since we're also talking about health, I wanted to ask you more about maybe how do medical practices differ in treating Rh negative patients, especially in emerging situations like blood transfusions, as well as in pregnancies. I know we have problems with pregnancies with positive factor. I know that my mom had to be bedridden for a while because my dad is O positive, she's O negative, and I'm O negative. But I turned out okay. I was the only child that survived, the only pregnancy that survived.
Right. So was her mom Rh positive? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know her mom. She was not a good person, let's say. So she was not around.
I hope she was Rh positive then.
Well, I know she was a redhead, but I think she was. It seems like from my mom's line, I know of her grandmother that she was very intuitive. She even knew the day that she was going to die. So, and she was also redhead. So she might have been Rh negative. But I think like their intuition, too much of it without focus, sometimes drives them a little crazy. I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird when people become older and they have lived a life, just a shitty life based on what other people wanted them to do because they had no choice. Then all of a sudden, when they get old, it can be very, very dangerous where they almost turn into rebelling children, right? And I've seen it a lot, man. I've seen it a lot about, so that's why it's so important to have balance in life and be around your own, I don't want to say your own kind, but yes, we are our own. Others don't understand us. They're angry when we look at each other or want to be with each other, Rh negative people, that is. But they don't understand us. They just want, you know what, the health part now. Okay, if you are an Rh negative woman and your mother's Rh positive, that means your blood could have already mixed in your mom's womb, right? That's what I was getting at. So when they say before the first pregnancy, you don't have to worry, bullshit. My grandma, I'm sure was Rh positive. My mom had like 7 miscarriages before me, you know what I mean? So she was already sensitized. She already had the antibodies, otherwise there is still standard operating procedure, which includes giving the shot to every Rh negative woman, no matter if her husband is Rh negative or not, they do all that. But it seems there's a lot of miscarriages happening still. They don't put mercury anymore, supposedly, into the shot, but Temericil. But still, that's why I started this date by type, because I wanted Rh negative women to have this opportunity to meet, and many marriages came from there. I wanted to give Rh negative women the possibility, if you're single, if you don't have anybody special, go and check if there is a dude who has your blood type or has a blood type that can donate blood to your blood type. because then there cannot be ABO or RH incompatibility. You know what I mean? So I am always getting horror stories, and of course, so much autism, and it's. I think nature wants RH negative people to be with RH negative people. I mean, it sounds very crude to say it like that, but if you cannot survive without medical intervention, I think nature knows best. And if a man can donate blood to a woman, then they are also compatible for pregnancy. So, for example, an O negative man, and by the way, sperm donors in in sperm banks, they always want men that are O negative. And sperm bank babies, and I am against sperm banks. I want to make sure, but they have 1/5 of the birth defects, or they are healthier than most children, which is crazy. But that has to do with blood type compatibility. So yes, you can say, oh, but we have modern medicine that takes care of everything. You can, yeah. But if you need medical intervention to keep your baby alive, I don't know. I am always for nature, meaning if you're an RH negative woman, and the man that you are with can donate blood to you, there will be no ABO incompatibility, and there will be no RH incompatibility, because ABO can also be harmful, not as much as RH incompatibility. But basically, on Date by Type, you can sign up for free, and you have a search box, so you can say, I'm looking for a partner who's A negative. Male or female, you choose. And then you can look and say, wow, this chick is hot, or this dude is promising, or whatever if you don't have a partner already, or you have a partner and he's no good for you, why not take a look if there's somebody, So I think RH negative women deserve the right to meet, especially nowadays, that you can reach through the world and don't have to be stuck within your neighborhood like it used to be, where your first girlfriend is somebody who lives like not so far away. You can look for the right people, and I can tell you, man, the most interesting people that I ever met in my life, I met through the internet. So why not meet the right partner also that way, and allow nature to ensure that you will not have any health problems or pregnancy problems that go along with blood type incompatibility.
Absolutely. So actually, one of my mentors, whom I admire very much, she's an RH negative lady, and she suffered some, let's say, shot damage because her mom was O negative, she's O negative, her dad is O negative. They still give her mom the shot.
Yeah.
So to this day, she suffers some issues because of it. I think that we are perhaps a separate species, and that's why we need to stick together, and that's why we can almost like sniff each other like Alien, like in the movie Alien, or like in the movie Species, where they can detect each other. So I wonder if you have any theories about that.
I will not say no to the species thing at all. It sounds freaky, but I really believe that, look, you look, when people, a blue-eyed person and a brown-eyed and so on, people, RH positives, they have either blue eyes, green eyes, brown eyes. We have central heterochromia. It shows the same way a person who has maybe brown hair has a reddish shimmer coming through the hair. We have this tendency to show the recessive traits of our ancestors, of whatever species, be it the Neanderthals or whatever. Yes, I agree with you completely that we are a different species, or hybrids of a different species. 100%. I mean, it's not proven, of course, the Neanderthals are different species. So there we go. Absolutely, we are different species, and we are drawn to each other. I mean, when I started the first ever RH negative group on Facebook, I couldn't believe how there was only at one time 120 members, but every second there were like 2 or 3 replies. People couldn't get enough of talking to each other about things that we always felt our whole lives, but nobody could relate to. You know what I mean? we are so drawn to each other because we can be ourselves with each other. We are used to a world where you kind of have to hide who you really are if you don't want to make enemies.
So, as you were mentioning, we face a lot of persecution throughout history. We've been accused of being witches, vampires,
Yes.
fairies, all kinds of things. I wonder why that persecution came about, or like how maybe. I mean, of course, a lot of the most visible phenotype is red haired and it's rare. So people thought, oh, maybe, like something strange, otherworldly. But like the vitriol against us is so wild that I wonder why it started.
It's not so different from the persecution of Jewish people. I mean, it's like the arch negative women back then passed on wisdom about how to heal naturally. They were real, they were not witches, they were real doctors. In my opinion, alchemy is the same as chemistry, but back then the churches told people, oh, you create a fusion of something and that comes from Satan. You heal people, you come from Satan. You need to come to church. They didn't want people healed. They wanted people miserable and obedient. And we are simply not able to be that. We simply have, especially when you look like Catalonia and Basque Country, for example, they're like, we want independence. We don't need to oppress other people, but we want to be left alone. Be it Scotland, be it the Berbers, Amazigh. Doesn't that word mean freedom? Or everywhere is freedom, freedom, independence. That is the common theme. So it's kind of like, leave me alone with your church and your government and your crap, because we know what's best. And so that attitude, because the Holy Roman Empire was the worst catastrophe. And by the way, I don't necessarily blame the people behind it. Evil people will always exist, but I blame the masses who mindlessly enabled it, because when they said this woman is a witch, they all came together and they gang raped and slaughtered her. That's where the broom thing comes from. They impaled her. You know what I mean? I mean, people are just horrible throughout the ages. So even today, when people say, oh, our government, no, your government reflects you. Your government reflects what the state of mind of many people is, the mentality. It also reflects what you let them get away with. So I am very, very much about, these women were dying. They were murdered in mass, and nobody did anything. You know what I mean? People all stood by and said, thank God it's not me. But we just can't be these sheep that say, okay, I'm just going to work the field for the rest of my life. I go to church on Sunday, and then I'm going to die after being miserable. My children will be miserable. My grandchildren will be. No, we know. We think like the manipulators behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And are like, this can't be for me. This is not my life. This is for them. This is designed for them. But it depends if you're friends with them, or if you have the audacity to try to change or wake people. If you show the traps to the blind, then you're in trouble. You can share information with people who are like-minded. That's not a problem. But you show people one trap, they'll fall the next one anyways. But then that's the danger, because they don't want us to warn people. They want the wrong people, as they see it, to fall by the wayside.
As you were mentioning, the church, the Holy Roman Empire, has persecuted us, not only us, but Jewish people, indigenous Europeans, indigenous religions, things like that. But it seems to me,
exactly.
it seems to me that maybe with us, or we came up with it, the divine right of rule, but then the fraudulent donation of the empire by Constantine, which we know was a forgery by the church.
Yeah.
Since then, every government is illegitimate because of that.
100%. The Congress of Nicaea, that was the blueprint for the Holy Roman Empire. That was in 325, and the empire started a few hundred years later. And by then, it was already, the conditioning process was already so strong that the newer generations have already been raised by the great-grandparents in church. Sorry, people didn't live that long back then, but they were already being conditioned, and absolutely every government had to get in line with that. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was the most oppressive, and I honestly, when I think about what RH negative people must have felt at the time, they didn't know why they're different. They didn't know that. I didn't know before the internet, before Facebook. That it was a relief. It was like, oh my God, that's why. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, because I couldn't understand why but these people were alone. Most of them, they just didn't know. And so, they were being told they're witches, they're evil. The Basque, what was it? The Basque witch.
The witch hunt.
There
So
was a
like
big
something
one.
like 60,000 or so women were
Yeah.
murdered by the church just in the Basque country,
They
in
ha-
Euskal Herria. Yeah, the biggest witch
yeah,
hunt in Europe.
because they were the most resistant. They were arch negative people, and they were like, what the hell are you talking about? No. And so, absolutely. And they had their own religion before then. Now they're all Catholic. So they killed the. Imagine the RH negative frequencies before that. They were a lot higher higher than 50%. You know what I mean? But they killed off the most rebellious ones. So they weeded out always the stronger ones. You know what I mean? They weeded out the free-spirited ones to where they wouldn't reproduce. So I'm sure there was maybe, who knows, if it was even 80% RH negative. I have no idea. Maybe at one point they were 100%, but they were, more than now for sure. And that is the way that, if that makes sense. I mean, I'm theorizing. Yeah.
So then let me ask you, what are some of the hot spots of our RH negative in the world right now that you know of?
Okay. Yes. The Berbers, there are certain tribes. The majority of the Berbers are less than 10% RH negative, but there are supposedly, and I believe it, in the 50s, there was a tribe with 40%, isolated tribe. There's now one with 29%. There are certain hotspots among them. I believe the original Berbers before the Arabs, came in and changed it all, were very high in RH negative blood. But again, those are very small hotspots. Then, of course, Basque country. The Spanish Basques, much higher than the French. The French are only like 24% RH negative. The Spanish, like maybe 30, almost 30. And then you have also the Chilean Basques are said to be more than 30% RH negative because they only stick with each other. That's the only explanation I have. But I've posted also that on my blog before. Then you have the southern Scandinavians, but that also comes because of the ancient slave women, the Celtic ones from Scotland. Now, on the west of Scotland, in Inverness, more than 30% are RH negative there. But on the side that's closer to the UK, it's like way less, like 20%, if that. Then you have Ireland. Northern Ireland is 27% RH negative. And the frequencies among the Irish in the Republic of Ireland are also very different from each other, and so it's not 25% like it used to be. And then you have also the Walsers, Walser of the Rhone Valley in Switzerland that are like 25% RH negative, very high in red hair and blue eyes. And Poland, Silesia, more than 20%, like 22, 23%. And Poland as a whole is like, I think, 20% RH negative. So a lot of the people, Silesia used to be a Scythian. The Scythians invaded it at one point. The Bedouins, Sinai Peninsula, more than 20% RH negative. And they could be related to the ancient Hebrews, and they preserved it so well because of the isolation, but also the inbreeding. And the ancient Hebrews, I believe, were very high in RH negative blood. Most Jewish communities in the world are pretty much showing the same frequencies like the rest of the populations. However, the Karaites have like 28%. Then the Samaritans and the Black Jews of Cochin, India, most of them are now in Israel. These have high percentages of Rh negative blood, very, very elevated numbers. I believe the ancient Hebrews were very high, and they are descendants of the Sumerians. You know what I mean? And the Sumerians also, the Yamnaya came over. There is a connection there. You look also at King Tut. His haplogroup, Y-DNA, is R1b, like the Yamnaya, like the Irish, like the Scottish, like all the Celtic, like the Basques now. Even though the original Basques were not. They were invaded by the Celts, and the whole Y-DNA was replaced pretty much.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a little more about the ancient Hebrews, because I know that a lot of the Kohanim are high on Rh negative. And I know that, yes, the Hebrews do come from ancient Samaria, from Chaldea. That's the story that Abraham was the son of the high priest of Chaldea. So that's where it comes from. And, we can trace that way back. We can trace it to like the very real humans that maybe they call the Anunnaki. But, I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, the ancient Hebrews are absolutely, I agree with you completely. And the Sumerians, Abraham was born in Ur. And, but again, we don't know. It doesn't matter. People say, oh, you go with. No, I don't. It's true that the ancestry of the Hebrews was in the Sumerian region. And the third dynasty of Ur was very much Semitic speaking already. And, people told me a Roman historian, he believed that the Hebrews came originally from the island of Crete. So they were basically Sumerian refugees that came to Crete, Mount Ida, the name Ida, and Judea is basically the same word. Genetic studies say it is possible, but it doesn't mean that all the Hebrew tribes came through that, but it could have been. But they were pretty much refugees from that region that has been destroyed. They built up a wonderful society, and they lost it all. So they had to start over somehow. So I think it's possible they actually went to the island of Crete and chilled out there, and then eventually started a new religion. Who knows? But I find it interesting that also you have... you know a little bit about the haplogroups, right?
Yes.
The Y-DNA and empty.
Yeah.
So the K, the Jewish thing is the empty DNA K. That would be the female Jewish line. So it's high. K is the highest in Ashkenazi Jews. And when you have, for example, the J is frequent, in Jews and was in Sumerians, is in Arabs, but Arabs don't have the K. They have a very small percentage of empty DNA K. That's the difference there. And it's, of course, we are all mixed. We can be Jewish, but we can be R1b and, there's a lot of R1b Jews like Burt Bacharach or Jeffrey Epstein that even look similar to each other. They both are haplogroup R1b or were, So, but that could have come later because we have mixed so much. Only like 1/3 of our DNA is still related to the ancient Hebrews, and the rest is just, because the Sephardics came through Northern Africa and mixed with the Berbers. So a lot of Jews have now haplogroup E1B1B.
Yeah, so in Spain, I know that the most common haplogroup for Jews is R1b, actually. Yeah. This is weird, but I am Sephardic, but my haplogroup shows up as I2, which is actually Visigoths. So I don't know, and I can drink milk perfectly. I know a lot of Jewish people cannot tolerate milk, but I think it's more the Ashkenazi actually. And I'm rather tall. I'm 6'5", which is not that common, I think, for maybe a lot of Rh negatives. So of course I'm very hybridized.
Yeah, but you see, I think the original Basques, they were high in I2 A and G2A. And then 4,000 years ago, the Proto-Celts came over and basically killed off all the males and replaced it with R1b. So you could be a remnant of actually the very, very ancient I2A. Is it I2 or I2A?
I'm not sure. It's I too, but yeah,
Okay.
it's coming from that side. But it is very possible because I know that my family, they are from that area, from Catalonia, from the Euskal Herria, that part. That's where they're still living there. Some of them.
No, I too is associated with height. I just remember that. I mean, not only in the Nordics, the Vikings, but it's also the like people in Serbia and Croatia, certain areas, very much. Yeah, I mean, I remember reading about that. Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense actually.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you more about, the we were talking about the ancient Hebrews, and a lot of people who have like weird theories about the RH negative think that there's this enmity between the positive and negative, and they hark back to the story of Jacob and Esau, and they said because Esau had red hair, but they were fraternal twins, so that means that either both of them had red hair, and one of them was hairy, and the other one might have had red hair as well, or they both were carriers. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of like made up enmity when we actually, the story shows that we come from the same source, basically, first of all, and that Abraham was a carrier of the gene, and Sarah as well,
I think that these stories pick out like characters and have them reflect a certain part of the population, because a high part of the population was red-haired among the ancient Hebrews. Many had, black hair and brown eyes, but then there were those with the blue eyes, and so they're mixed. And I know so many people, for example, they have brown hair, but the beard is red. You know what I mean? A lot of Jewish people, Ashkenazis, I think, I have seen who have that. I would say that there was never 100% RH negative. The trait was always there, and I think that the highest ones, the ones that were very teaching the others very well, often had red hair. But there was different types of. There was also that other gene pool, where they were not RH negative, but carriers for sure. So
Yeah,
I need to look
Mhm.
sorry more, but I'm reading, and wasn't Adam was supposed to be also red haired. I mean, there are a lot of red hair shows up all the time. Not so much blonde hair or anything, but it was either dark hair or red hair.
Even now, I
Yes.
go to this Chabad house that the rabbi, the main rabbi,
Mhm.
is a redhead. His wife is a redhead, and their child is a
Yes.
redhead. So it's lovely to me. I
Yeah.
haven't asked him their blood type, but yeah.
People get freaked out or get weirded out when I ask people for blood types, or I guess people's blood type. I guess it all the time. I don't do it like I cannot do it on command. If you tell me what is his blood type, even though I've done it before, it happened before, but I just know. When I know, I just know. I keep talking to somebody, and we keep talking and talking and talking, and I can be myself, and I learn, and I'm like, you are, oh my God, you are, that's what it is. You are RH negative. And then, it happens all of the time. Look, I mean, you look at, there's like almost 2,000-year-old mosaic from a temple in Galilee. And there you can see how Judeans depicted themselves, what they really looked like. You know what I mean? And I think some of them show red hair, but a lot like brown hair and like skin, like light skin, maybe a little bit olive, but it's interesting to see also when you look at the Berber empires or the Phoenicians, they all had a very Mediterranean kind of look, very similar. The Berbers, a lot of them had blue eyes and blonde hair. And that was also Egyptians. Some of them had blue eyes and blonde hair. And you look at the coins and the statues. So anybody that goes along the Hollywood BS and Denzel Washington is Hannibal. No, just take your time to research, and the genetic research you can also look at and align with all of it. And you realize what people actually really, really looked like at the time. And they look pretty much like us, in Northern Africa, Western Asia, and in Southern Europe. They pretty much all had a very, very, very similar look. And red hair was probably very frequent there. Many of the ancient Egyptians had it. King Tut, by the way, I was going to say R1b and K. So his mtDNA was actually K. And R1b was his Y-DNA. So that is kind of like an example of how the migrations took place at the time. And of course, the Arabic conquest changed everything, the Arabian Peninsula, that's the home of the Arabs. The rest is just colonies, invaded nations. And so that changed, you see still in parts, you still see kids born there in many of these countries with red hair, blonde hair and blue eyes, but it's always interesting to me to see what did they look like thousands of years ago? Where do I come from? What did people look like that were so much like me, I think that red hair was always there, and I think it came from the Sumerians, and I think Jews mixed, Hebrews mixed along the way. The Kohanim, it's very interesting. I suspected that because the J1C haplogroup is also so high in the Bedouins, and they are like up to 30% Rh negative. And so I always suspected that the Kohanim were especially high. I think the 12 tribes are very different from each other, actually. More different than we realize today.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to wrap it up, I'm glad that you've been able to open up in this interview, and I've been able to open up, and I feel like, we have that beautiful kinship of the extended family. Yeah. So I thank you so much. And I hope that our listeners will enjoy this interview because it's been fascinating to me. So thank you so much. And if you want to make any closing statement, go ahead. Thank you so much.
Listen, man, yeah, it's been a pleasure. I hope that all of you Rh negatives come to X or Twitter and follow CobraPowers. And I am Firetown. Firetown is my handle. And of course, he mentioned my website, rhesusnegative.net. Please come hit us up and give us suggestions. You can also go to... On my blog, I link to my Facebook page and all of that. But feel free to leave a comment. Feel free to message us with your questions, with your experiences. If we have another show like this, we want to make sure that we cover some of the areas of deep interest to you. Thank you so much. Shalom.
Thank you so much. Shalom, and be safe and have a good one.
Okay, yeah, same here, man.
Thank you so much.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.